The sun hung low over the cracked asphalt of Route 17, painting the horizon in strokes of burnt orange and ash grey. A convoy of 50 Harley-Davidsons thrummed like a living beast, their engines growling in unison as they carved through the desert wind. This was the Iron Promise Memorial Ride, annual pilgrimage for fallen brothers, ghosts of old wars and newer battles whispering from the chrome and leather. Cole "Brick" Henson led the pack, his broad shoulders hunched against the rush, salt and pepper beard whipping in the breeze. At 51, Brick was a mountain of a man, scarred from tours in forgotten sands and bar fights that settled scores without words. But today, his eyes, hidden behind aviators, stared at the road ahead like it owed him answers. The ride paused at the edge of Willow Creek, a dusty town clinging to life amid sagebrush and faded billboards. Riders dismounted near a roadside memorial, a weathered cross draped in black ribbons, flanked by plastic flowers bleached by years of unrelenting sun. Families gathered, faces etched with quiet grief, children clutching stuffed animals as if they could ward off the ache. That's when it happened. A small boy, no more than 9, broke from the crowd. His sneakers kicked up puffs of dirt, shirt untucked, and eyes wide with a terror that didn't belong on a face so young. He darted straight for the bikers, ignoring the murmurs of concern, and latched onto Brick's gloved hand with surprising strength. "You promise, Mom," Aaron Pike whispered, voice cracking like dry earth under boot. The words sliced through the low hum of idling engines, freezing the entire group in stunned silence. Brick's heart slammed against his ribs, the boy's grip a vice on memories he'd buried deep. He knelt slowly, the creak of his leather vest echoing in the sudden hush. Around them, the Iron Promise crew, veterans, mechanics, souls bound by ink and oath, formed a loose circle, their faces a mosaic of confusion and wariness. Jax, the wiry vice president with tattoos snaking up his neck, cut his engine first, the silence amplifying the boys' ragged breaths. "Kid, what the hell?" someone muttered, but Brick raised a calloused hand, silencing the ripple. Aaron's eyes, stormy blue like a sky before thunder, locked onto his. "She said you'd come. Elena said Brick would keep it." The name hit like shrapnel. Elena Pike, nurse in the wildfire hell of 18, when flames devoured the hills outside Redstone Valley. Brick had been there, not as a hero, but as one of the evac crew, volunteering with the club after a brother lost his home. Smoke had choked the air, thick and acrid, turning day to dusk. Eleanor, 28 then, fierce and steady amid the chaos, had pressed a photo into his palm, her and the boy, smiling on some brighter day. "If I don't make it," she'd said, voice steady despite the fear flickering in her eyes, "watch over Aaron. Promise me." He'd nodded, words lost in the roar of sirens and crackling timber, but she hadn't made it, official word, lost in the chaos. No body, no closure, just a file stamped incomplete, and a kid shuttled through foster shadows. Brick's throat tightened, the weight of that vow settling like gravel in his lungs. He'd carried it silently, a scar deeper than the ones on his knuckles. Rides like this were his penance, thundering across miles to honor the gone, but this was a ghost reaching back. "How'd you find me, son?" he asked, voice gravel low, pulling off his gloves to cup the boy's trembling shoulder. Aaron's lower lip quivered, but he didn't cry. "I saw the bikes on the news. Memorial for the fire guys. Mom kept your patch, the Iron Fist." He pointed to the club's emblem stitched on Brick's cut, a promise forged in steel, loyalty unbroken, justice unyielding. The crew exchanged glances, engines ticking as they cooled, whispers stirred. Had the kid been waiting, planted? But Brick saw truth in those eyes, raw and unpolished. He'd failed Elena once, letting life bury the oath under club runs and midnight regrets. Not again. "Tell me what happened to you," he said, guiding Aaron to sit on a nearby curb, the group closing ranks like a shield wall. The boy spoke in fits, words tumbling out, bounced from aunt to group home. Questions about his mom dismissed as old news. Last placement? A temporary spot in Willow Creek, but whispers of changes, files shuffled like they meant nothing. They say she's gone, but I know. You promised. Jax crouched beside them, his usual smirk gone. Boss, this ride's for the memorial. We got miles to cover. But Brick's gaze hardened, the desert wind carrying the faint scent of pine smoke, a ghost of that night. Ride changes now. We're finding out what really went down in Redstone. Murmurs turned to nods. Iron promise didn't break words. The boy had reignited a spark, turning a tribute into reckoning. Engines revved back to life, but slower, purposeful, as if the machines sensed the shift. Brick lifted Aaron onto his bike's passenger seat, the boy's small hand still in his. Hold on, kid, we're keeping that promise. As the convoy reformed, dust swirling in their wake, the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows that stretched like unanswered questions. Brick felt the club's pulse sync with his own, a family chosen in fire, bound to unearth truths buried in ash. The road ahead twisted toward Redstone scars, where logs yellowed with time hid more than flames. Elena's voice echoed in his mind, soft against the roar. Protect him. And for the first time in years, Brick believed he could. The desert blurred past, but Aaron's whisper lingered, a thread pulling them all into the unknown. What corners had been cut in that evacuation? Whose hands had falsified the calm in chaos? Brick's grip tightened on the handlebars, the vibration humming through his bones. This wasn't just a ride anymore. It was redemption, rolling on two wheels toward justice long overdue. The convoy sliced through the twilight, headlights piercing the gathering dusk like accusatory fingers. Route 17 gave way to narrower backroads. The Harleys rumble a steady heartbeat against the encroaching silence of the hills. Aaron clung to Brick's waist, his small frame pressed against the leather of the vest, the boy's breaths sinking with the engine's pulse. Brick could feel the child's heartbeat through the layers, quick, fragile, a reminder of stakes higher than club oaths. The wind carried the faint tang of sage and distant rain, but beneath it lingered the ghost of smoke, acrid and insistent, pulling memories from the edges of Brick's mind. Redstone Valley loomed ahead, its jagged peaks silhouetted against a sky-bruised purple. The town below was a patchwork of scorched earth and half-rebuilt homes, scars from the 18 blaze still raw under fresh paint and resilient gardens. Brick eased off the throttle as they crested the final rise, the group fanning out behind him like a protective wing. Jax rode flank, his bike weaving close enough to signal with a gloved fist. Scouts ahead. The Iron Promise didn't charge blind. They mapped the terrain, human and otherwise, before striking at shadows. They pulled into the outskirts at a forgotten gas station, pumps rusted and canopies sagging like weary shoulders. Neon flickered erratically over redstone fuel, casting erratic glows on the crew as they killed engines. Boots crunched on gravel, the sudden quiet amplifying the boy's soft sniffle. Brick dismounted first, lifting Aaron down with hands that trembled just slightly, calluses rough against smooth skin. "Stay close, kid," he murmured, scanning the lot. A few locals lingered at the counter inside, eyes darting curiously through grimy windows. Whispers would spread. Outsiders like them always drew them. Jax approached, wiping sweat from his brow, his neck tattoos glistening under the light. "Town's quiet, boss, but I got a lead from that old contact, Rusty, the mechanic who hauled gear during the fire. Says the evac logs are locked up at the community center, but someone's been nosing around 'em lately." Brick nodded, jaw set like granite. Elena's face flashed in his mind, her steady gaze amid the inferno, handing him that photo with fingers smeared in soot. "Promise me," she'd said, the words a lifeline in the roar. He'd given his word, then let it fade under the weight of survival. No more. The group huddled, voices low and urgent. We split up, Brick decided, his tone brooking no argument. Jax, you and the prospects check the old firehouse. See if any gear logs survived. Lena, take the van to the hospital. Pull what you can on Elena's file. Lena, the club's quiet enforcer with a nurse's precision and a veteran's edge, nodded, her braid swinging like a pendulum. The rest would fan into town, ears open for tales of cut corners and buried truths. Aaron tugged at Brick's sleeve, eyes wide but determined. I'm coming with you. Brick hesitated, then ruffled the boy's hair. All right, but you watch my six. They moved as one, shadows merging with the night. The community center squatted on Main Street, a squat brick building with boarded windows and a flag drooping in the still air. Brick shouldered the door open, the hinges groaning like a warning. Inside, the air was stale, laced with dust and the faint must of old paper. Dim fluorescence buzzed overhead, illuminating shelves of files stacked haphazardly. Aaron stuck close, his sneakers silent on the linoleum, while Brick rifled through drawers marked Evac 18. Fingers sifted yellowed pages, the paper crackling softly. Manifests listed names, vehicles, exit times. But Elena's was absent, her slot blank like an erasure. Brick's pulse quickened, a low growl building in his chest. This ain't right, he muttered, tracing faded ink. A notation caught his eye. Contractor override, Eagle Ridge Construction. Clearance denied but logged complete. The name twisted like a knife. Eagle Ridge, fly-by-night outfit that bid low on rebuilds, whispers of skimped safety gear during the blaze. Brick pocketed a photocopy. The machines were echoing too loudly in the empty hall. Outside, the night had deepened, stars pricking the velvet sky. Jax met them at the corner, face grim under the street lamp's yellow haze. Firehouse was picked clean, but I talked to an old-timer. Says the contractor pulled hoses early, saved $1 on overtime, left the east flank exposed. Elena was triaging there, last seen loading kids into a van that never rolled out. Brick's fists clenched, leather creaking. The pieces fit like shrapnel in a wound. Chaos manufactured, lives traded for profit. Aaron's hand slipped into his again, small but steady. Mom wouldn't leave those kids. She waited. The convoy regrouped at the gas station, bikes forming a circle under the moon's pale watch. Lena returned, clutching a manila folder, her expression thunderous. Hospital records confirm it. Elena's shift ended, but no exit stamp. File notes presumed lost, but a nurse I know swears she saw Eagle Ridge trucks blocking the road, diverting help to their sites. Murmurs rippled through the crew, anger simmering like embers. Jax slammed a fist into his palm. We ride on their HQ at dawn. Make 'em talk. But Brick held up a hand, eyes on Aaron, who stood taller now, chin lifted. The boy had cracked open a vault Brick had sealed years ago, forcing light into the dark. Not yet. We gather proof first. Honor the promise clean. The group nodded, loyalty a tangible force binding them. Engines coughed to life once more, but the path veered east, toward Eagle Ridge's sprawl on the valley's edge. The air hummed with purpose, the scent of pine and resolve cutting through the night's chill. As they rolled out, Aaron leaned forward, whispering against the wind. You kept coming back in her stories. The big biker who didn't run. Brick's throat tightened, the road's vibration an echo of that long-ago fire. He'd run once from the vow, letting grief and miles bury it. But iron promise was family forged in flame, leal, unyielding. This ride wasn't vengeance, it was restitution, a silent thunder rolling toward truths that could rebuild a shattered life. The valley slept, unaware of the storm brewing on its fringes. Brick glanced back at the boy, whose eyes reflected the taillight's red glow. Hope flickering where despair had rooted. The promise, once gravel in his lungs, now fueled the engine, propelling them into the heart of the lie. Dawn would break with questions, and Eagle Ridge would answer. And now I invite you to leave in the comments where you're watching from and the exact hour you heard this story. We wish to know how far these northern confessions travel and at what moments they reach you. Dawn crept over the valley like a reluctant witness, fingers of pale light clawing at the shadows, clinging to Eagle Ridge Construction's compound. The site sprawled on the eastern fringe of Redstone, a fortress of chain-link fences topped with razor wire, trailers hunkered like wary beasts amid stacks of lumber and idle machinery. The air hung heavy with the scent of damp earth and diesel, the night's chill yielding to a warmth that promised another scorcher. Brick throttled down as the convoy approached, the Harley's low growl fading to a murmur, respectful of the quiet before the storm. Aaron rode pillion behind him, the boy's arms wrapped tight around his midsection, a small anchor in the swelling tide of resolve. They parked in a loose arc just beyond the gate, engines cutting off one by one in a cascade of silence. Dust settled slowly, the only sound the distant chirp of waking birds and the faint creak of cooling metal. Brick dismounted, boots sinking into the gravel with a crunch that echoed his determination. He scanned the perimeter. Floodlights hummed along the fence, casting harsh pools of yellow, but no guards patrolled yet. The early shift wouldn't stir for another hour. Jack slid off his bike nearby, pulling a worn backpack from his saddlebag, its contents clinking softly, tools for truth, not destruction. "We go in quiet," Brick said, voice a low rumble, eyes meeting each rider's in turn. "No badges, no bluster, just answers." The crew nodded, a ripple of shared purpose passing through them like a current. Lena lingered by the van, her folder tucked under one arm, while two prospects, young bloods with fresh ink and sharper instincts, slipped toward the rear fence, scouting for weak points. Aaron stayed glued to Brick's side, his face pale but set, the fear from yesterday's revelations hardening into something fiercer. "What if they lie?" the boy asked, voice barely above a whisper, fingers twisting the hem of his shirt. Brick knelt to his level, the morning light catching the silver threads in his beard. "Then we listen closer. Promises like your mom's don't break on words alone." They moved as shadows, Jacks clipping the gate's lock with bolt cutters that snipped like hushed shears. The group filtered through, boots soft on the packed dirt, weaving past bulldozers shrouded in tarps that billowed faintly in the breeze. The main office trailer loomed ahead, a prefab box with blinds drawn tight, the faint glow of a desk lamp seeping through cracks. Brick signaled a halt, the air thick with the tang of rust and fresh-cut wood. Inside, they could hear the murmur of a radio, static-laced voices discussing loads and deadlines. Lena pressed her ear to the door, then nodded. One occupant, early bird buried in paperwork. Jacks picked the lock with practiced ease, the tumblers clicking like secrets yielding. They slipped in single file, the door easing shut behind them with a soft exhale. The interior was a cramped warren of filing cabinets and cluttered desks, the air stale with coffee grounds and printer ink. A middle-aged man in a flannel shirt hunched over a ledger, back to them, oblivious until Brick cleared his throat, a gravelly sound that filled the space. The man spun, chair scraping, eyes widening behind wire-rimmed glasses. "What the—" "This is private property. Get out before I call the sheriff." Brick stepped forward, his bulk filling the doorway, but his hands stayed open, palms up. No threat, just presence. "We're not here for trouble, Mr. He glanced at the nameplate. Harlan Voss, site foreman. Voss. "Just answers about the 18 fire. Evac logs. Eagle Ridge's roll." The man's face paled, Adam's apple bobbing as he glanced toward a phone on the desk. Jax leaned against the wall, casual but blocking the exit, while Lena set her folder down with deliberate slowness. Aaron peeked from behind Brick's leg, his gaze piercing unspoken accusation hanging in the air. Voss's eyes darted to the boy, then away, fingers drumming the desk. Look, that was years ago. Chaos, flames everywhere. We did what we could. But his voice cracked, the words hollow against the trailer's thin walls. Brick pulled the photocopied manifest from his vest pocket, sliding it across the scarred wood. This says otherwise. Override on the east flank. Hoses pulled early. A nurse, Elena Pike, last seen there loading kids. Van never made it out. Why? The foreman swallowed hard, sweat beading on his brow despite the chill. The radio crackled, a weather report droning about dry winds, but the room felt smaller, tension coiling like a spring. Voss's gaze flicked to the files behind him, cabinets labeled with dates that matched the blaze. It wasn't my call. Higher-ups, bids were tight, overtime costs. We rerouted equipment to secure our sites first. Logs got adjusted. For insurance, no one was supposed to get hurt. His words tumbled out, defensive, but laced with the rot of regret. Lena opened her folder, spreading hospital notes like evidence in a trial. Adjusted? That's a fancy word for lies. Eleanor's file ends abrupt, no exit, no body. Kids waited while you saved your steel. Aaron stepped forward then, small but unyielding, his voice cutting through the adult's murmur like a blade. Mom waited for everyone. She promised me she'd come home. You took her. The words landed heavy, Voss flinching as if struck, his chair creaking back. The boy's eyes, so like Elena's in Brick's memory, stormy, unbowed, held the foreman captive. Outside, the first hints of machinery stirred, a distant engine coughing to life. But in here, time stretched, moral weight pressing down. Brick's chest tightened, the gravel in his lungs shifting to fire. He'd carried this failure like a chain, but seeing it reflected in Aaron's face ignited something deeper, a call to honor not just the vow, but the woman who'd trusted him. Who gave the order? He pressed, voice steady, leaning in without menace. Voss hesitated, then sighed, deflating. The owner, Garrett Hale. He signed off, said priorities. I got the paperwork here. He yanked open a drawer, rifling through folders until he unearthed a thick binder, pages yellowed and dog-eared. Signatures, memos, cold trails of corner cutting that traded lives for ledgers. Jack snapped photos with a phone, flashes brief as lightning, while Lena cross-referenced dates. The pieces aligned. Eagle Ridge's diversion had bottlenecked the evac route, flames leaping unchecked. Elena, triaging in the smoke, had stayed too long, her van trapped in the jam. No malice, perhaps, just greed's quiet cruelty. Voss rubbed his face, lines deepening. We rebuilt after, donated even, but yeah, it haunts. His eyes met Aaron's, a flicker of shame breaking through. I'm sorry, kid. Truly. The apology hung, insufficient but a start. Brick placed a hand on the man's shoulder, firm but not crushing. Sorry, don't bring her back. But truth does. You come clean. Full report to the right ears. And maybe it writes some. Voss nodded slowly, the fight draining out. As they filed out, the binder under Lena's arm, the sun breached the hills fully, gilding the compound in gold. Engines awaited, but the ride felt lighter, burdens shared now among the crew. Back on the bikes, Aaron climbed up without prompting, his grip surer. He looked scared, the boy said, as Brick kick-started the Harley, the roar awakening the morning. Of you, of us. Brick glanced back, wind tousling the child's hair. Not of us, son, of what he'd buried. The convoy pulled away, dust trailing like a veil lifted, heading toward Hale's office in the valley's heart. Whispers of the confrontation would spread, but iron promise moved deliberate. Justice not as thunder, but as unyielding light. The road curved through scrubland, sage whispering against tires, the scent of awakening earth mingling with resolve. Brick felt the club's bond tighten. A family woven from scars and oaths, carrying Aaron not as baggage, but as purpose. Eleanor's promise echoed in the engine's thrum. Protect him. And in unraveling the lie, they forged a path to redemption, 1 mile at a time. The valley unfolded before them, secrets no longer safe in shadow. The midday sun beat down on the valley floor like a relentless interrogator, turning the asphalt into a shimmering mirage that distorted the horizon. The Iron Promise convoy thrummed toward the heart of Redstone, bikes slicing through waves of heat rising from the parched earth. Brick led the pack, his Harley steady under him, but his mind raced ahead to Garrett Hale's office, a sleek, glass-fronted building that stood out like a false promise amid the town's weathered facades. Aaron's weight against his back was a constant reminder, the boy's chin occasionally bumping Brick's shoulder with each bump in the road. The air whipped past, carrying the dry scent of sun-baked clay and the faint, underlying bitterness of charred wood that never fully left these parts. They pulled up to the office lot in a controlled wave, engines growling to a halt as tires crunched over loose stones. The building loomed modern and out of place, its reflective windows mirroring the club's approach like watchful eyes. A few workers in hard hats paused mid-stride, tools dangling forgotten. As the bikers dismounted in unison, Jax killed his bike last, slinging a leg over with a glance that said he'd seen enough corporate facades to know they hid rot. Lena clutched the binder from Voss's trailer, her steps measured, while the prospects hung back, eyes scanning for any sign of trouble. Aaron slid down without a word, his sneakers hitting the ground firm, but he stayed within arm's reach of Brick, as if the man had become his shield against the world's cruelties. Brick adjusted his aviators, the leather of his cut creaking softly, and strode toward the entrance. The automatic doors hissed open, spilling cool, conditioned air laced with the sterile tang of fresh coffee and printer paper. The lobby was sparse, reception desk unmanned, walls lined with framed photos of rebuilt sites, smiling faces oblivious to the shadows behind the smiles. A directory pointed to Hale's corner office upstairs, and Brick took the stairs 2 at a time, the group following like a silent tide. Footsteps echoed on the linoleum, a rhythmic pulse that built tension with each step. Hale's door was ajar, voices drifting out, low and clipped, discussing bids over the clink of ice in glasses. Brick pushed it open without knocking, the hinges silent but the intrusion thunderous. The room was a study in calculated success, mahogany desk piled with blueprints, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the valley's scars, and Garrett Hale himself, mid-40s, slick hair and tailored shirt, frozen mid-sentence with a phone to his ear. His eyes flicked up, narrowing behind designer frames as he hung up abruptly. "Who the hell are you people? Security!" No one moved to call it. Jax positioned himself by the door, arms crossed, while Lena set the binder on the desk with a deliberate thud. Brick loomed in the center, his presence filling the space like smoke from a long-extinguished fire. "Garrett Hale? Cole Henson? Iron Promise. We're here about the 18 evac, your overrides, a nurse named Eleanor Pike." The name dropped like a stone into still water, rippling across Hale's composed features. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled, but a muscle twitched in his jaw. The tell of a man cornered by ghosts. Aaron edged forward, peeking around Brick's leg, his small frame contrasting the room's polished edges. Hale's gaze slid to the boy, lingering a beat too long, recognition flickering like a faulty bulb. "Kid, you look familiar. Look, that fire was a tragedy. We did our part, rebuilt half the town." His voice was smooth, practiced, but it grated against the raw truth in the air. Brick pulled the photocopy from his vest, laying it beside the binder. "Your part, pulled hoses, blocked routes. Elena stayed back for the kids, van trapped because of your priorities. Logs say complete, reality says lives lost." Hale's eyes darted to the documents, color draining from his face. The room's AC hummed softly, a counterpoint to the thickening silence, while outside, the valley baked under the sun's unblinking stare. Lena flipped open the binder, pointing to signatures, Hale's own scrawl authorizing the reroutes. These memos don't lie. Overtime cut to pad profits. East flank burned hotter because of it. Elena's last position triaging with no backup. Hale's steeple broke, hands flattening on the desk, knuckles whitening. It was business. Flames were everywhere. Insurance wouldn't cover if we didn't secure assets first. No intent. It chose to stay. The word chose hung poisonous, and Aaron's breath hitched, a small sound that pierced the adult's standoff. "She didn't choose to leave me," the boy said, voice steady despite the tremor, stepping fully into view. His eyes, blue and unyielding, bored into Hale's. "Mom promised she'd come home. You made her a liar." The foreman's earlier apology echoed in Brick's mind, but this, facing the source, stirred the gravel in his lungs to embers. He'd let Elena's vow slip through his fingers once, buried under miles and regrets, but the club's loyalty had dragged it back, a chain linking them all. Hale shifted, chair creaking under him, the scent of his cologne, sharp, artificial, clashing with the room's tension. "I have lawyers. This is trespassing." But his bluster faltered as Jax pulled out his phone, already recording, the red light a quiet accusation. Brick leaned in, not aggressive, but immovable. "Lawyers won't rewrite the dead. Voss talked. Full logs your orders. We take this to the families, the press, or you make it right now, full disclosure, compensation for those left behind." His voice was low, gravel rough, carrying the weight of Iron Promise's oath, justice not in fists, but in unmasking the dark. The executive's gaze fell to Aaron again, the boy's presence a living indictment, small hands clenched at his sides. Something cracked in Hale's facade, regret, perhaps, or the fear of exposure crumbling his empire. He exhaled sharply, rubbing his temples. "Fine, the files. Everything's in the server downstairs. I'll pull them, but this stays quiet. No headlines." Lena nodded curtly, already moving toward the door with Jax, while Brick stayed, watching Hale's shoulders slump. The man keyed a code into his computer, screens flickering to life, revealing digital manifests buried deeper than paper. Minutes stretched. The only sounds, the keyboard's clatter and Aaron's soft breathing. Data flowed, timestamps, route diversions, cost sheets that prioritize steel over souls. Elena's name appeared in fragments, assigned to the east, no extraction logged, presumed in the chaos Hale's greed had engineered. Brick's fist tightened at his side, but he held steady, the promise to Elena now a beacon guiding his restraint. Outside, the sun climbed higher, casting harsh light through the windows, illuminating dust motes like ash from the past. By the time Lena returned with a USB drive heavy with evidence, Hale looked diminished, the power suit hanging looser. "It's all there," he muttered, avoiding eyes. "I'll testify if it comes. For the kid." Aaron didn't respond, but his grip on Brick's hand eased, a silent shift from fear to fragile trust. The group filed out, the lobby's cool air now feeling like a brief respite before the road's heat reclaimed them. Back in the lot, engines roared to life, the convoy reforming with renewed purpose. Brick lifted Aaron onto the bike, the boy's weight lighter somehow, as if truths unearthed had lifted some burden. "You did good in there, son," Brick said, voice rumbling over the idling motor. Aaron nodded, wind already tousling his hair. "Like Mom, standing up." The words warmed Brick's chest, dissolving the last grit of that old vow. Iron Promise rolled out, data secured, heading toward the authorities. Not for vengeance, but for the quiet justice that honors the fallen. The valley's curves embraced them, sagebrush blurring past, the air alive with the promise of closure. Brick glanced at the side mirror, seeing the club's tight formation, a family chosen, unbreakable. Eleanor's voice whispered on the breeze, "Protect him." And in this unraveling, they all found redemption, mile by rolling mile. If you're feeling the pull of this story, smash that like button. It helps these tales of honor and heart reach more riders on the road. The valley's heatwave crested into afternoon. The sun, a merciless forge, hammering down on the convoy as they veered toward the sheriff's station on Redstone's outskirts. Brick's Harley cut through the haze, the engine's steady thrum a counterpoint to the whirlwind in his mind. Files heavy in Lena's saddlebag, Hale's reluctant confession still echoing like a hollow echo. Aaron rode close, his small hands fisted in Brick's vest, the boy's silence a mix of exhaustion and quiet triumph. The air rushed past, thick with the scent of heated asphalt and wild thyme blooming defiant along the roadside. But beneath it all lingered the faint, acrid whisper of old smoke, a reminder that some fires never fully die. They rolled into the station lot, a squat concrete bunker flanked by flagpoles drooping in the still air, engines fading to ticks and sighs as the group dismounted. Dust clouds settled like settling scores, the club's presence drawing stares from deputies lounging on the porch. Coffee mugs paused mid-sip. Brick swung his leg over, lifting Aaron down with a gentleness that belied his bulk, the boy's sneakers scuffing the gravel. Jax flanked them, backpack slung low, while Lena clutched the USB drive like a talisman, her braid damp with sweat under her helmet. The prospects hung back, watchful, as the core crew advanced, boots crunching in unison, a procession bound by more than leather and chrome. Inside, the station smelled of stale linoleum and machine oil, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like trapped insects. A desk sergeant looked up from a stack of reports, his badge glinting under the harsh glow, eyes narrowing at the influx of ink and attitude. "Can I help you folks?" he drawled, voice laced with the wariness of small-town authority facing outsiders. Brick stepped forward, removing his aviators to reveal eyes shadowed by years of unspoken burdens, the lines around them deepening in the cool draft from the AC. "Cole Henson, we're here with evidence on the 18 wildfire evac. Falsified logs, contractor negligence, lives lost because of it." He nodded to Lena, who placed the binder and drive on the counter with a soft thump, the sound amplified in the quiet lobby. The sergeant, name tag reading Harlan Tate, flipped open the binder, his brow furrowing as he scanned memos and timestamps. Whispers stirred from the bullpen behind him, deputies craning necks, but Tate held up a hand, silencing the ripple. "This is heavy stuff. Eagle Ridge. Hale's a big name around here. Donates to the fundraisers." His tone carried the weight of local ties, the subtle defense of a system that protected its own. Aaron shifted beside Brick, his gaze fixed on the floor. But when Tate's eyes flicked to him, the boy lifted his chin, stormy blue meeting the deputies with a child's unfiltered demand for rightness. Brick felt the gravel shift in his chest again, not regret now, but the burn of insistence. Eleanor's face surfaced in his thoughts, her soot-streaked determination amid the flames, pressing that photo into his palm with fingers that trembled just once. "Promise me," she'd whispered, the roar of the blaze swallowing the rest. He'd nodded then, a vow etched in the chaos, only to let it erode under the miles of club runs and midnight silences. But Aaron's arrival had scraped it clean, turning iron promise into a force for the buried truths. "Big name or not," Brick said, voice low and even, "this points to cut corners. East flank exposed, routes blocked. A nurse, Elena Pike, didn't make it out. Her boy's right here, waiting for answers." Tate's expression softened a fraction at Aaron, the man's hand pausing on the binder. He thumbed through more pages, the paper rustling like dry leaves in wind, until Hale's signature leaped out, bold and incriminating. "All right, I'll log this, run it up the chain. But investigations take time, state level probably." The words carried caution, a hedge against the corruption Brick sensed lurking in the town's underbelly, where favors flowed like cheap whiskey. Jax leaned against the wall, arms crossed. His tattoos a silent map of battles, won without badges. Time's what the kid's been short on. Shuffled placements, files marked incomplete. We got Voss's statement, Hale's data. Make it move. The lobby tensed, air thickening as a senior deputy emerged from the back, uniform crisp, face etched with the lines of too many compromises. "What's this about?" he barked, snatching the binder. Brick recognized the type. Authority weathered by politics, eyes darting to assess threats. Aaron tugged at Brick's sleeve, voice small but piercing the standoff. They lied about Mom, said chaos, but it was them. Saving money. The words hung raw and unadorned, drawing every eye in the room. The senior deputy's bluster faltered, his gaze dropping to the boy, then to the evidence, a flicker of unease crossing his features. Lena stepped up, her voice steady as a scalpel. Hospital records match. No exit for Elena, but diversions logged here. Kids waited while equipment rolled to sites. She tapped the USB. The drive's weight symbolic of the lives it quantified. Lost hours, truncated escapes, a van stalled in flames that could have been doused. The senior deputy flipped pages faster now, sweat beading despite the chill, the room's hum fading under the gravity of revelation. Brick placed a hand on Aaron's shoulder, the boy's warmth grounding him. A bridge to the nurse who'd trusted a stranger in hellfire. This wasn't just files, it was restitution, honoring a promise that had outlived the smoke. Tate cleared his throat, breaking the spell. "We'll need statements. All of you." He gestured to a side room, chairs scraping as the group moved, the club's loyalty a palpable shield around the boy. Brick guided Aaron to a seat, the vinyl creaking under them, while Jax and Lena laid out the timeline. Confrontations at the compound, Hale's capitulation, the digital trail unspooling like a noose. Questions flew, pens scratching reports, the air laced with the faint bitterness of cooling coffee from a nearby pot. Aaron spoke when prompted, his voice gaining strength, recounting Elena's stories of the big biker with the kind eyes, tales that painted Brick not as a ghost, but a guardian delayed by fate. Hours blurred in the dim room, sunlight slanting through blinds in golden bars that crept across the floor. Doubts surfaced, Hale's influence, the town's reliance on Eagle Ridge jobs, but the evidence mounted, unyielding as the club's oath. The senior deputy finally closed the binder, face grim. This could reopen the whole evac inquiry, charges if it sticks, manslaughter, maybe fraud. His words carried the promise of motion, justice's slow wheel turning at last. Brick nodded, the weight in his lungs easing to a steady breath, Elena's vow transforming from burden to beacon. As they emerged into the late afternoon glare, the convoy reformed under a sky streaked with the first hints of dusk. Engines growled awake, vibrations humming through boots and bones, the scent of exhaust mingling with the valley's resilient earthiness. Aaron climbed up without hesitation, his arms looping around Brick's waist, a silent pact sealed. "They listened," the boy said, voice muffled against leather. Brick revved the throttle, the Harley responding like an old friend. "Because of you, son. You held the line." The group pulled out, dust swirling in their wake, heading toward a safe house on the valley's edge. Time to regroup, let the law grind while Iron Promise watched the flanks. The road wound through scrub and shadow, taillights winking like stars emerging early. Brick felt the club's pulse sink deeper. A family forged, not in blood, but in the fire of kept words, veterans, riders, a boy remaking their world. Redstone secrets cracked open, but deeper layers waited, foster files to reclaim, a future to rebuild. Elena's whisper rode the wind, "Protect him." And in the unraveling, Brick found his own redemption, thundering forward on wheels of honor. The night deepened, but light pierced the dark. Mile by purposeful mile, The safe house perched on the valley's ragged edge, a weathered cabin tucked into a fold of red rock where pinon pines clawed at the sky like desperate fingers. Dusk bled into the horizon, painting the scrubland in hues of bruised purple and fading gold, the air cooling to carry the sharp bite of creosote and distant thunder rumbling low. The convoy eased to a stop in the clearing, Harleys sighing into silence as riders dismounted, their boots stirring pebbles that skittered like scattered secrets. Brick killed his engine last, the vibration lingering in his bones as he helped Aaron down, the boy's legs wobbling slightly from the long haul, but his eyes bright with the day's unyielding light. Inside, the cabin smelled of aged timber and faint lamp oil, walls lined with mismatched shelves holding club relics, faded photos of rides past, a dented helmet from some forgotten skirmish. Lanterns cast warm pools on the scarred oak table where Lena spread the evidence like a map to buried hearts, binders open to incriminating memos, the USB drive gleaming under the glow, printouts curling at the edges from the day's heat. Jax paced the creaky floorboards, his shadow stretching long, while the prospects brewed coffee in a dented pot, the aroma grounding the group's restless energy. Aaron perched on a stool, knees drawn up, watching the adults with a quiet intensity that made him seem older than 9. Brick leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed over his chest, the leather of his cut settling with a soft creak. The sheriff's station had been a start, files logged, statements taken, but doubt gnawed at him, a familiar grit under his skin. Tate's cautionary words echoed, "Investigations take time. Hale's name carries weight. In a town rebuilt on Eagle Ridge contracts, truth could twist like smoke in wind." He glanced at Aaron, the boy tracing patterns on the table with a finger, and felt Elena's vow pulse anew, not as gravel now, but as steady fuel. "You holding up, son?" Brick asked, voice low, crossing to ruffle the child's hair. Aaron nodded, but his eyes held a shadow. "What if they forget again, like with Mom?" The words landed soft but heavy, rippling through the room. Lena paused mid-note, her pen hovering, while Jack stopped pacing, his usual edge softening. "They won't," she said, sliding a chair closer to Aaron, her voice a calm anchor. "We've got the proof. Hale's cracking. Voss, too. The sheriff's got to move, or the families will." She tapped a list of names from the hospital files, other lost souls, incomplete reports mirroring Elena's. Iron Promise had reached out quietly en route, whispers to widows and kin, planting seeds of shared reckoning. The club wasn't storming gates, they were weaving a net of quiet insistence, loyalty threading through the valley's veins. Outside, night deepened, stars pricking the velvet dome overhead, the first drops of rain pattering on the tin roof, like hesitant confessions. Jax cracked a window, letting in the fresh, mineral scent of petrichor, and pulled up a chair, his tattoos catching the lantern light. "Got a call from an old contact in the state office," he said, keeping his tone even. "Hale's been lawyered up since we left the station, pushing back, calling it harassment, but the data's solid, timestamps don't lie." He slid his phone across, a voice memo playing, Voss's recorded apology. Voice thick with years of silence breaking. Aaron leaned in, listening, his small fist unclenching as the foreman's regret filled the space. Brick's jaw tightened, the rain's rhythm syncing with his pulse. He'd carried Elena's promise like a phantom limb, numb from disuse, but Aaron's grip had restored sensation, painful, vital. Memories surfaced unbidden, the wildfire's roar, flames licking the hills like hungry tongues, Elena's face illuminated by dashboard glow as she loaded the van. "Go," she'd urged the evac crew, her hand steady on a child's shoulder. "I'll handle the stragglers." Brick had argued, but the chaos pulled him away, sirens wailing into the night. Official chaos, he'd believed, until now. "We don't wait for them," he said finally, straightening. "Tomorrow we rally the families, meet at the memorial site, Show hailed the town's not his ledger. Murmurs of agreement rose, the crew's bond tightening like chain links under strain. Lena organized shifts, prospects to guard the perimeter, eyes on any tales from town, while Jack sketched a loose plan on a napkin, routes marked in pencil strokes. Aaron yawned, the day's weight pulling at him. But he fought it, sliding off the stool to stand by Brick. "Can I help? Tell stories like Mom did?" The boy mimed holding a photo, his gesture pulling a rare half-smile from Brick. "Yeah, kid. Your words carry more than ours." The simplicity struck deep. A child's truth, unpolished, cutting through adult veils. As the group settled, some grabbing blankets from the loft, others nursing coffee by the fire pit outside, Brick stepped onto the porch, rain misting his face, cool against the day's lingering warmth. The valley stretched dark below, lights twinkling like wary eyes, but the storm clouds promised cleansing. Aaron joined him, small hand slipping into his, the touch a bridge across years. "She said you'd be like a dad if, you know." The boy trailed off, staring at the drops pooling on the rail. Brick's throat closed, the vow evolving in that moment, from protection to something familial, chosen in the quiet spaces between rides. Thunder rolled distant, vibrating through the wood, and Brick pulled Aaron close, the rain's patter a veil over their silence. Iron Promise had halted a memorial to chase ghosts, but in doing so, they'd unearthed a legacy. Not just Elena's truth, but a future where promises didn't fade. The club inside stirred, voices low with plans, loyalty, a warm glow against the night. Hale's pushback loomed, but so did the dawn, bringing families, voices united, justice, moral and unyielding. Jax emerged, wiping hands on his jeans, the scent of damp earth clinging to him. "Perimeter's clear. Get some shut-eye, boss. Big day." Brick nodded, guiding Aaron back in, the door clicking shut like a resolved note. The cabin hummed with purpose, lanterns flickering as rain drummed on, washing the valley's scars toward renewal. Brick lay on a cot later, Aaron curled nearby under a quilt, the boy's breaths evening out. Elena's whisper rode the storm, "Protect him." And in the heart of it all, Brick knew they were building more than answers, a family forged in rain and resolve, ready to claim what greed had stolen. The night held them, but morning would thunder forward. Morning broke over the valley like a vow fulfilled, the rain's remnants glistening on red rock faces and pooling in tire tracks from the night before. The air hung crisp and cleansed, carrying the earthy tang of wet sage and the faint, hopeful scent of blooming creosote stirred by a gentle breeze. Brick stirred in the cabin's loft, the cot creaking under his weight as sunlight slanted through cracked shutters, painting golden bars across Aaron's sleeping form. The boy lay curled under the quilt, face peaceful for the first time since Willow Creek, his breath soft against the quiet. Brick watched for a moment, the gravel in his lungs long dissolved into a steady resolve, Elena's promise now a compass pointing true. Downstairs, the Iron Promise crew moved with purposeful hush, coffee brewing in the dented pot, its rich aroma mingling with the damp wood of the walls. Jax folded the napkin map from last night, his movements precise, while Lena packed the evidence into a reinforced case, her braid swinging like a metronome of determination. The prospects had already scouted the road to the memorial site, reporting clear paths under a sky washed blue and vast. "Families are coming," Jack said as Brick descended the stairs, boots thudding softly on the planks. Word spread overnight, texts, calls, Hale's scrambling, but the truth's rolling faster than his lawyers. Aaron woke with a yawn, rubbing eyes still heavy from dreams unspoken, and padded over, slipping his hand into Brick's without a word. The touch grounded him, a small link in the chain of chosen bonds that had pulled them all from shadows. "Today's the day?" the boy asked, voice muffled but eager, glancing at the table where photos from Elena's file lay, her smile captured in better times, fierce and warm. Brick nodded, ruffling the child's hair, the silver in his beard catching the light. "Yeah, son, we stand together. For her." The convoy assembled under the climbing sun, Harleys gleaming with dew-kissed chrome, engines coughing to life in a symphony that echoed off the rocks. They rolled out single file, dust minimal on the damp earth, the road curving through scrubland, where pinon pines stood sentinel, needles whispering approval. Aaron rode with Brick again, his arms secure around the man's waist, the vibration of the bike sinking their heartbeats as the valley unfolded below, scars softened by green shoots pushing through ash-enriched soil. Behind them, the club formed a protective phalanx, Lena's van trailing with the evidence, Jack scouting ahead on his scout bike, cutting sharp lines through the morning mist. The memorial site emerged at the base of the hills, the weathered cross from Willow Creek now augmented by a gathering crowd, dozens strong, faces etched with the quiet grief of the 18 blaze. Families clustered near the black-ribboned markers, holding faded photos and handwritten signs. Truth for the lost. Honor the evac. A few recognized the bikers from local whispers, stepping aside as the convoy pulled in, engines fading to respectful idles. Brick dismounted first, lifting Aaron down, the boy's sneakers sinking into the soft ground still slick from rain. Whispers rippled through the group, nods of gratitude, curious glances at the child who had sparked this reckoning. Lena set up a makeshift table under the cross's shadow, spreading the binders and printouts like offerings, the pages fluttering gently in the breeze. Jax connected a small speaker to his phone, Voss's recorded voice memo ready to play, its gravelly regret a bridge to the crowd. Brick stood at the center, his broad frame a pillar amid the murmurs, Aaron beside him like a shadow grown bold. As more arrived, widows in simple dresses, fathers with work-worn hands, children clutching stuffed animals not unlike Aaron's lost ones, the air thickened with shared ache, the scent of wildflowers mingling with the faint, persistent earthiness of renewal. Hale appeared last, pulling up in a polished truck that looked out of place among the pickups and sedans, his suit rumpled, face drawn under the relentless sun. Flanked by 2 suits, lawyers, no doubt, he hesitated at the edge, eyes scanning the assembly like a man measuring a storm. Brick met his gaze across the space, unblinking, the weight of Iron Promise's presence a silent thunder. No confrontation yet. This was testimony, not trial. Aaron tugged Brick's sleeve, whispering, "He's scared." Brick squeezed the boy's shoulder. "Good, means he's seeing." Lena started the gathering with facts, her voice clear and measured, cutting through the hush like a blade through fog. "These logs show what greed hid, roots diverted, hoses pulled, lives like Elena Pikes traded for timelines." She played the memo, Voss's words filling the air, apologies for overrides, regrets for the East Flank's exposure. Murmurs swelled to gasps, hands covering mouths, eyes turning to Hale, who shifted under the collective stare. Families stepped forward one by one, a mother recounting her husband's last radio call, cut short by blocked paths. A sister describing her sibling's van stalled in flames that should have been contained. Aaron listened, then spoke when prompted, his small voice carrying farthest. "Mum stayed for the kids. She promised she'd come home. This makes it real." Hale's resolve cracked midway, the lawyers whispering urgently as photos circulated, Elena's face among them, smiling from a hospital corridor. He cleared his throat, stepping into the circle, the crowd parting like water before resolve. "We made mistakes," he said, voice halting, the breeze tousling his hair. "Priorities shifted. I'll release everything, full audit, compensation fund, for the Pikes, for all of you." It wasn't absolution, but a concession, born of exposure's light. Nods rippled through the assembly. Not forgiveness yet, but a path forward. justice poetic in its quiet demand. As the sun peaked, casting long shadows over the cross, the sheriff arrived unbidden, Tate, with a notepad and a state investigator in tow, drawn by the swelling reports. Statements flowed, evidence handed over, the wheel of law grinding at last under moral weight. Brick watched it unfold, Aaron's hand in his, the boy's eyes reflecting not storm now, but clearing skies. Elena's promise had bloomed into this, truths unearthed, a community mending, a boy no longer adrift. By afternoon, the crowd dispersed with purpose, contacts exchanged, plans for oversight committees whispered. Hale drove off alone, truck kicking up dust, his empire's facade fractured. The Iron Promise crew lingered, helping pack the site, their bikes waiting like faithful steeds. Brick knelt to Aaron's level, the ground warm under his knees. "You're not shuffling anymore, son. If you'll have us, Iron Promise is home." The boy's face lit, arms wrapping around Brick's neck in a hug fierce and final, like family, like Mom wanted. The convoy reformed for the last leg, engines roaring to life as they headed north, away from Redstone's healing scars. The road stretched open, wind whipping stories of redemption into the air, promises kept, loyalties forged, justice a legacy on two wheels. Brick felt whole, the club's thrum a heartbeat shared. Aaron's laughter breaking free against the rush. Elena's whisper faded into peace, protected, cherished, forever bound. Thank you for riding this journey with us. If tales of unbreakable promises and chosen family stir your soul, hit that subscribe button and join the Iron Promise. Together, we honor the roads ahead.